Europe is cracking. People are leaving due to skyrocketing housing prices and surging crime rates. Sweden is plagued by gun violence. France is sinking in protests. The top 10 most abandoned countries in 2025, you'll be surprised by this list. Number 10. The United Kingdom. Once considered the heart of the empire on which the sun never sets, the United Kingdom is now witnessing a historic reversal as more and more citizens, from the working class to intellectuals, choose to leave their homeland. Not because of a lack of patriotism, but because life here is becoming increasingly difficult, burdensome, and lacking in prospects. Cost of living crisis. London, once Europe's leading financial center, is gradually becoming an unreachable destination for Britons themselves. Average rent has surpassed $2,500 a month, not to mention energy, food, and transport costs, which have surged after the pandemic and the war in Ukraine. A recent report stated that nearly 1/3 of renters in the UK are having to cut basic expenses like food, heating, or medical visits just to pay rent. Heavy consequences from Brexit. Since the UK officially left the EU, the quiet yet constant withdrawal of international corporations like Honda, Panasonic, and JP Morgan has taken place. Thousands of jobs in finance, automotive, services, and tech have moved to France, Germany, or Ireland, leading to a significant drop in employment opportunities, especially for the young. Supply chains have also been disrupted, causing shortages and soaring prices, worsening brain drain. The situation doesn't only affect the blue-collar class, but is also severe among highly skilled workers. Thousands of doctors, nurses, tech engineers, young researchers have left the UK's public system to move to countries like Australia, Canada, Germany, or the Netherlands, where salaries are higher, working conditions better, and social welfare more stable. In the healthcare sector alone, the number of doctors applying to leave the NHS to work abroad has risen by over 35% in just the past 3 years. Rising social and political instability. The UK is facing a dangerous mix of rising crime, weakened public services, and severe political polarization. Rates of violent crime and knife attacks in major cities like London and Manchester have reached their highest levels in the past decade. Meanwhile, the NHS is critically overloaded, with waiting times stretching to several months, causing many patients to bang before receiving treatment. On the political front, the instability caused by 5 different prime ministers in just 7 years has eroded public trust in the nation's leadership and reform capability. Number 9. Germany. Once seen as a symbol of stability and efficiency in the Eurozone, Germany, Europe's industrial powerhouse, is now grappling with a series of systemic challenges. Beneath its prosperous surface are alarming signs of a quietly spreading crisis within German society and economy. Worsening housing crisis. In major cities like Berlin, Hamburg, and Munich, rental prices have surged more than 40% in just the past 5 years, making it difficult even for people with stable incomes to manage. Many young people are forced to live with their parents into their 30s, or move to the countryside to escape the high cost of living. Meanwhile, new housing construction is not keeping pace with demand, and complex legal regulations discourage real estate investors. Demographic crisis and tough immigration policies. Germany's population is aging rapidly, with over 22% aged over 65, while the birth rate is among the lowest in Europe. This has led to a serious shortage of young workers, especially in sectors like tech, healthcare, and mechanical engineering, pillars of the German economy. However, instead of expanding immigration to compensate, Berlin has tightened visa procedures and border control, partly due to pressure from populist parties and concerns over domestic security. Stagnant income amid rising costs. Although Germany remains the EU's largest economy, average wage growth has not kept up with inflation, especially since the 2022 energy crisis and the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war. Prices for electricity, gas, and food have all spiked, while many German workers are forced to cut basic spending despite working full-time. The dream of a stable, middle-class life, once the foundation of German society, is now severely shaken. Businesses leaving, rising public discontent. Under pressure from rising production costs and increasingly complex tax policies, many international corporations have relocated manufacturing to Poland, the Czech Republic, or Asia. This has not only reduced local job opportunities, but also triggered criticism of the government for being inflexible in economic management. At the same time, protests and strikes have spread, from teachers and nurses to railway workers, revealing deep frustration in society over inequality and declining quality of life. Number 8. France. With the dazzling Eiffel Tower, fine wine, high art, and fashion, France has long been viewed as a symbol of culture and quality of life. However, behind the glitz of the French dream lies a reality pushing more and more citizens, especially youth in the middle class, to consider leaving the country in search of stability and opportunity elsewhere. Living costs skyrocketing, especially housing. The capital, Paris, the heart of France, is facing a severe housing crisis. The average rent for a small apartment has surpassed €1,500 a month, not to mention the cost of utilities, transport, and food rising rapidly post-pandemic and after the energy crisis. For students and young workers, living independently in Paris is now almost a luxury. The overload on public housing and slow construction rates further intensify the problem. Widespread and prolonged social unrest. France has become the protest capital in recent years. From the Yellow Vest movement, rail strikes, to protests against pension reform, the wave of discontent shows no signs of slowing. As a result, many public services are disrupted periodically, affecting daily life and the investment climate. Political polarization and eroding trust in institutions have left society deeply divided. Worsening security and rising crime. Two major cities, Paris and Marseille, are turning into security hotspots, with growing incidents of theft, street violence, and drug trafficking. Marseille is particularly affected by armed gangs linked to transnational crime networks. Meanwhile, the increasing presence of no-go zones, areas where police avoid intervention, is raising concerns about autonomization in some neighborhoods. Public debt burden and heavy tax policies. France is now carrying public debt exceeding €3 trillion, roughly 110% of GDP. This has forced the government to tighten public spending while maintaining high corporate and income taxes. Small and medium-sized businesses, the backbone of the local economy, are being weighed down by taxes, complex administrative procedures, and inflexible policies. Many young entrepreneurs have opted to relocate abroad to Belgium, Portugal, or Canada to launch startups in a more business-friendly environment. Number 7. Italy. Italy, the cradle of Roman culture, world-famous cuisine, and ancient cities like Rome, Florence, and Venice, has long been a dream destination for global travelers. However, behind the glamorous facade of tourism lies a reality that is making even locals feel uneasy. A stagnant economy, rapidly aging population, and fading hope in the future. Severe demographic crisis. Italy is experiencing an alarming population decline. The current birth rate is at a record low, just around 1.2 children per woman, far below the natural replacement level, 2.1. Meanwhile, high life expectancy and the trend of having fewer children have pushed the percentage of people over 65 to more than 23%, among the highest in Europe. The workforce is shrinking, social welfare costs are rising, and the shortage of a younger generation to take over is becoming more evident. Youth unemployment at alarming levels. With youth unemployment around 22%, Italy has one of the highest rates in Europe, only behind Spain and Greece. The result is a generation falling into a state of educated despair, with degrees but no opportunities. Many young people are forced to leave the country to find work in Germany, France, or Northern Europe, leading to a prolonged brain drain phenomenon. Over a decade of economic stagnation. Since the 2008 global financial crisis, Italy's economy has remained sluggish. GDP growth is weak, and public debt has now exceeded 140% of GDP, one of the highest levels in the Eurozone. Meanwhile, high taxes and deteriorating infrastructure have discouraged both domestic and foreign investment. Small and medium-sized enterprises struggle to access funding, and cumbersome bureaucracy has indefinitely delayed many development projects. Tourism booming, but not enough to support locals. Although Italy receives tens of millions of tourists annually and is among the top tourism revenue earners in the world, this wealth is mainly concentrated in areas like Rome, Venice, and Milan, where property prices have skyrocketed, pushing locals to the outskirts. Many residents feel like strangers on their ancestral land. Moreover, most tourism jobs are short-term, seasonal, and low-paying, insufficient for ensuring long-term financial stability. Number 6. Spain. Spain, the land of golden sunshine, wine, vibrant festivals, and alluring beaches, was once a symbol of relaxed and colorful living. But beneath the beauty, the Spanish dream is slowly fading for many citizens as issues with the economy, housing, and politics become increasingly visible and severe. Persistently high unemployment. Though the economy has shown signs of recovery post-pandemic, the national unemployment rate remains above 12%, one of the highest in Western Europe. Even more concerning, nearly 28% of people under 25 are jobless, leaving many graduates in prolonged unemployment or stuck in low-paid temporary jobs. This has created a generation of ninis, ni estudia, ni trabaja, neither studying nor working, with uncertain futures and low morale. Airbnb boom sends rents skyrocketing. The surge in short-term rental platforms like Airbnb has driven rental prices in cities like Madrid and Barcelona up by more than 50% in under a decade. Locals are finding it increasingly hard to secure suitable housing, while many neighborhoods have become so touristified that they've lost their community identity. Longtime residents are being forced out of city centers to make room for tourists and investors. Low incomes, precarious living conditions. Although living costs in Spain are lower than in some Western European countries, average wages are also among the lowest in the Eurozone. With around €1,400 a month before tax, many young people find it hard to save, buy a home, or build long-term stability. Low wages lead to reduced quality of life, especially as prices rise and welfare policies lag behind social needs. Political polarization and prolonged instability. Long-standing political instability, from the national level to regional territories, has eroded citizens' trust in the governing system. The constitutional crisis after the 2017 Catalonia independence movement left deep divisions in Spanish society, sparking debates over national identity and autonomy. Frequent general elections often end in deadlock, with no party winning an outright majority, causing governments to change often and lack the stability needed to push through major reforms. Number 5. The Netherlands. Praised as one of the most livable countries in Europe, with progressive education, an open society, and a high quality of life, the Netherlands has long been a model of modern, fair, and sustainable society. However, behind this ideal image, more and more locals are feeling suffocated and choosing to leave. Not due to a lack of freedom, but because the very over-civilized system has become an unbearable burden. Severe housing crisis, prices out of reach. The dream of owning a home in the Netherlands is increasingly out of reach for the middle class. Average home prices have surpassed €400,000, rising over 70% in just a decade. In cities like Amsterdam, Utrecht, and Rotterdam, the housing shortage forces thousands, even families with stable incomes, to live in cramped spaces or wait years for public housing. Tax pressure and legal bureaucracy. The Netherlands is known for high taxes, especially for middle-income workers and small businesses. In addition, strict regulations on environmental protection, labor rights, and business operations make investors feel constrained. For example, building or expanding a factory often requires going through a maze of procedures related to emissions, renewable energy, and labor rights, slowing down growth and innovation. Organized crime quietly expanding. Although still considered safe by European standards, in recent years, Amsterdam and Rotterdam have become hubs for drug trafficking and organized crime networks. The explosion of cocaine and methamphetamine smuggling through the port of Rotterdam, one of Europe's largest ports, has created a dangerous underground ecosystem. Gang violence, even the murder of journalists and lawyers, has shocked Dutch public opinion. Number 4. Sweden. Sweden was once admired worldwide as a model of welfare, safety, and political stability. But the reality is gradually changing. Behind the clean cities, peaceful forests, and advanced education system, this Nordic country is facing increasingly severe challenges. From social unrest and housing crisis to the decline of essential public services. Alarming rise in gang crime and gun violence. In the past decade, Sweden has seen a sharp rise in shootings, bombings, and murders linked to organized crime, a phenomenon once considered rare in this country. Stockholm, Gothenburg, and Malmö have become violence hotspots, with bloody clashes happening right in residential areas. According to Swedish police, many cases are tied to transnational drug networks and turf wars within immigrant communities. Housing crisis, high prices, long waits, low hopes. Owning or renting an apartment in Sweden, especially in major cities, is becoming increasingly difficult. Housing prices have risen over 80% since 2010, while the rental system is based on a points queue. In Stockholm, the average wait time to rent an apartment can reach 20 years. This forces many young people to live crowded, stay with relatives, or accept exorbitant prices in the private rental market. Overloaded healthcare system, long wait times. Although praised for fairness and professional quality, Sweden's public healthcare is overwhelmed, with waiting times for appointments or surgeries stretching for weeks, even months. People in rural or remote areas find it even harder to access quality care. A shortage of healthcare staff, especially nurses and general practitioners, has become a serious issue directly affecting public health. Harsh climate affects mental health and well-being. Long, dark, cold winters are not just physically demanding, but also a mental burden. Many, especially immigrants unfamiliar with the environment, face seasonal affective disorder, SID, insomnia, anxiety, and isolation. In northern areas like Kiruna or Umeå, people can live in near-total darkness for weeks, making mental health deterioration likely without proper support systems. Number 3. Poland. Poland is considered one of the fastest-growing economies in Central and Eastern Europe over the past 2 decades. From a post-Soviet transition economy, the country has become a regional hub for manufacturing and tech. However, behind the impressive growth figures, an ongoing wave of emigration, especially among the youth, persists. It seems the progress is still not enough to retain the very people shaping the nation's future. Much lower income compared to Western Europe. Although Poland's GDP per capita has risen significantly, the average salary is only around €1,500 a month, far below countries like Germany, France, or the Netherlands. This makes it hard for young workers to attain their desired quality of life at home. Meanwhile, living costs, especially housing and food, are rising, widening the gap between income and standard of living. Ongoing emigration wave since joining the EU. Since joining the European Union in 2004, over 2.20 million Poles have left the country to live and work abroad, mainly in the UK, Germany, the Netherlands, and Ireland. Those leaving are often skilled workers, top students, or tech professionals, fueling the brain drain. Although some return after studying or working, most choose to build long-term lives elsewhere. Skyrocketing real estate far outpaces wages. In Warsaw, housing prices have increased over 80% in just a decade, making it very hard for young people to buy homes without family financial support. Wages can't keep up with real estate inflation, while the rental market grows more competitive, forcing many young workers to spend most of their income on housing. Some work their entire lives and still can't afford their own apartment. Political division and threats to press freedom. In addition to economic and social issues, Poland is facing deep political polarization. Tensions between conservative and liberal parties have led to intense debate, affecting domestic policy and international relations. Particularly, press freedom, a pillar of healthy democracy, is under threat from media control policies and pressure on independent journalism. This raises concerns about the future of democracy in a country once a symbol of the solidarity movement against authoritarianism. Number 2. Portugal. Portugal has long been seen as Europe's hidden gem, with mild weather, sunny coastlines, a slow-paced lifestyle, and rich cultural identity. It was once a haven for dreamers seeking a simple, peaceful life in Europe. Ironically, this very charm is now pushing locals to the margins, as tourism booms and foreign investment spiral daily life into chaos, low income, but fast rising living costs. Although Portugal's economy is recovering post-pandemic, the average salary is only around €200 per month, among the lowest in the Eurozone. Meanwhile, living expenses, especially housing, energy, and food, have soared, leaving even employed citizens struggling. The middle class is shrinking, and young people are unable to sound or make long-term plans. Tourism and investment boom drives rents sky high. Lisbon and Porto, the two largest cities, have become paradises for foreign real estate investors and short-term rental platforms like Airbnb. As a result, rents have doubled in under a decade, pushing locals out of city centers. Many traditional neighborhoods have been turned into tourist zones where native language fades, and local shops are replaced by cafes and flats for foreigners. Lack of quality jobs for youth. Youth unemployment remains high in Portugal, and even those employed often accept temporary, short-term, or low-paying jobs. This instability has led many educated young people to leave for better opportunities in countries like Germany, Switzerland, or the Nordics. This is one of the key drivers of the country's prolonged brain drain. Crumbling infrastructure and public services. Tight budgets have overwhelmed and degraded Portugal's transportation, healthcare, and education systems. Many hospitals lack doctors, schools lack teachers, while trains and buses in big cities often run late or can't meet demand. To many citizens, once proud services now symbolize neglect and stagnation. Number 1. Greece. Greece, cradle of Western civilization, birthplace of philosophy, art, and Mediterranean paradise islands, was once the world's dream destination. But for many locals, reality is growing dimmer. After the historic debt crisis, the country has yet to fully recover. Millions struggle to get by amid low wages, high taxes, and a crumbling public system. Wages too low to match the cost of living. Currently, the average salary in Greece is only around 1,100 euros a month, significantly below the Eurozone average. While the economy shows signs of recovery, worker incomes have not bounced back to pre-2009 crisis levels. Meanwhile, consumer prices, especially food and electricity, have steadily risen, weakening people's purchasing power. Heavy tax and welfare burden eats real income. Greek workers face income tax and social security contributions that consume nearly 50% of total earnings, leaving little after-tax income. This is a major reason why many young people choose to migrate to Germany, the UK, or Northern Europe, where they can keep more of their income and enjoy more stable welfare systems. High unemployment and crumbling public health care. Though lower than during the crisis, Greece's unemployment rate still hovers around 11 to 12% and is even higher among youth under 30. Many jobs are part-time, unstable, and poorly paid. Meanwhile, public health care is understaffed and under-equipped, with wait times stretching to months. In rural or island areas, accessing medical care is even more difficult. Climate change cripples rural life and agriculture. Greece suffers from record heat, wildfires, and droughts, severely hurting agriculture. A pillar of rural life, olive, grape, and wheat yields have dropped sharply in recent years, slashing farmers' income and fueling an exodus from the countryside to cities or abroad. However, urban areas can't absorb the growing labor force, increasing pressure on housing, healthcare, and infrastructure. Europe is not collapsing, but the wave of people leaving is growing rapidly. From skyrocketing rents and overloaded healthcare to political unrest, the problems are worsening. Without change, this migration wave will only intensify. Final question for the video. Will you stay and fight for a better future, or will you pack your bags and leave?